Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is exactly 5 o'clock on my side. Um, so I'm going to start with the session. Welcome back. I can't believe it is already this time of the year. We're at the end almost of this semester because of the FAC 3704 class that will be written very soon, and I'm sure by now you know the exam date. Anyway, I'm still Andre Stein. Today I'm going to give you feedback on the assignment, which I refer to as assignment 2. For assignment 2, there was 2 assessments, assessment 2 and assessment 3. I'm only going to give feedback on assessment 3. There is 2 study guides that are study tutorial letters that I've issued through an announcement with the solutions to both those assessments. So you're more than welcome to go and have a look at them if you haven't done so yet. And then you'll also, if there's any questions from your side, you're more than welcome to contact me. As you know by now, all the classes are recorded, and as soon as it's possible, I will upload this. But for me, I hope there's still a lot of students who will come and join us later, because I think there's not a lot of time left to go and do this afterwards, because it's less than a week, then we'll be writing the exam. Same thing there, I'm the lecturer. There's the preferred email address if you've got any questions. FAC 3704 at unisa.ac.za, and I will be answering those emails every day. Obviously, as closer as we get to the exam, there might be more email pressure, so I will answer them as quickly as I can. So if there's any questions, do not hesitate to email me. Okay. In this session, I will focus on the following. I will focus on the exam date, exam time slots, and other details, other important examination information, assignment feedback, as I said, only on assessment 3, and then general errors that students normally make. That's now, I will look at the errors that you've made specifically in this assessment. When we marked it, we saw those errors, and that's generally when we ask something. Um, um, so typically the students make the same errors. So if you can learn from this session to make sure you don't make the same errors or typical errors like I'm going to discuss, then you should not have a problem with the exam. Then I'm going to give you at the end and throughout a few examination tips. And then the last one is just, if you haven't watched the exam technique and revision video that I've posted last week, please go and do so as well. I really believe there's also a few things that will benefit you. So obviously, if you don't have a lot of time left, don't go and waste all your time on that, because I'm sure I'm going to cover some of the things that's in that video today as well. But if you've done through questions and so on, there's a few things, especially towards the end of that specific video. It's an old video that I've recorded, I think, in 2023, but the principles, majority of the principles stays the same, and I obviously covered things there that I will not be covering today as well. Okay. By now, you should know the exam date is this coming Saturday, 17 May 2025. And the time is 12:15. And why I'm saying 12:15, I'll show on one of the slides to follow as well, is you actually will have to start writing at 12:30. And then by 12:15, the exam question paper will be available for you to download. So obviously you want to make sure that you're ready beforehand, all your stuff, your Wi-Fi, it's quiet where you're going to write. And as soon as that script is available, you know everything else is in place, that you can download the script and immediately start. Because obviously you've got 3 hours to write the paper, but if it only takes you 2 minutes to download the paper and everything else is in order, it gives you that opportunity to start sooner. So this is the time slots and other information of the day. So normally I put this information on the welcome page of the My Exams portal. So for now, I want you to make sure before the exam that you've got access to that My Exams portal. Unfortunately, you will not be able to see the exam script yet. So that will only be available on 17 May at exactly 12:15. But I've put this specific screen on the welcome page. Plus, what is not included here, I've put a summary of things of the exam rules and the QR code instructions also on that welcome page. Don't go and waste time on that on the day of the exam. On the day of the exam, you need to do the question paper and the answer, and don't stress about the other administrative stuff. So if we start here at the top, the date, we set 17 May, which is the Saturday. Download the examination paper is from 12:15 to 12:30. Okay? Then you write the exam from 12:30 to 15:30. And now you need to listen carefully. The first place where I want you to go and upload your solution is on the My Exams platform. And if you can look here, this is the time, 15:30 to 1400. Okay, in other words, 3:30 to 4 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you, not a lot, there was a few students who in the assessments emailed me afterwards saying, no, but when I tried to submit, the system did not allow me. The system will not allow you if you're 1 second later than 4 o'clock. So that's why you can't wait until that time. Immediately at 3:30, stop and upload your script. Okay? Because if you're 1 second late, it's not going to be marked. So I'm telling you now beforehand, okay, there's not going to be any late submission that will be accepted. Okay? Second thing on that specific point, make sure you upload the correct document. So we normally get 1 or 2 students who will either upload the question paper instead of your solution, or maybe you've written something else during this week. I'm not even sure exactly when your first exams are. And then students upload the incorrect script. So they upload a incorrect module solution to the exams portal. I'm really sorry. All your hard work is then lost because no excuses will be accepted. This is exam. This is now where you need to start take responsibility to make sure you upload the correct document at the correct time. Okay. Then below that, please read the Invigilator app summary for exam at the bottom of this message. That's now what I said. You will not see it here. That's now on the welcome page of the exams portal. Okay. Then your time to upload the student script on the Invigilator app. I said here 1600 to 1630, but please immediately after you've written at 3:30, upload to the exams platform, and when you're done, upload to the Invigilator app. Ladies and gentlemen, then we know there's no issues. So upload it there on both the platforms, then we know there's no issues. And make sure you understand and know the rules of the Invigilator app, so that you don't want something small like that to have a negative impact on your result. Okay. I repeat it here. I say do not start later than 15:30 to upload your script on the My Exams platform to ensure sufficient time. No late submissions will be marked, and only scripts submitted on the My Exams platform will be marked. I'm going to be very strict this time because I've placed an emphasis on it now. I've put it as announcements and on the welcome page of the exams platform, and later in this week I'm going to repeat this on your module site as well. File format. Some of the students ask me, how should I do it? Should I do it in Word? Should I do it in Excel? Should I write it? Blah, blah, blah. At the end, your script or your solution, your attempt, whatever you want to call it, should be in PDF format. Okay? And I want to stop there. I want you to make sure when you open the PDF document that it's properly readable to you. Because if you can read it properly, if the layout is properly, it's going to be the same on my side when I open it. So sometimes students will, for example, do it in Excel, then they save in PDF. Then, just as an example, there's a statement of financial position. Then the descriptions is on one page. Then suddenly, that's now in PDF. Then suddenly, there's all the other pages of other questions, and then the amounts is on page 14 or 15. So make sure beforehand you exercise how to do something in Excel, and to view it in Excel that it will be printable on the same page. In other words, the amount and the descriptions. I'm not saying cramped everything in that it's so small that I can't read it. I'm just saying if you've got your heading at the left, not your heading, your description, for example, property, plant and equipment, and your amount is 100,000, that I at least see that on one page. Obviously, if your calculation is not in brackets next to it, but reference to C1 or A or B or whatever the case may be, and that is on the second or the third page, by all means, if at least question one follow from pages 1 to 3 or whatever the case may be, that's better. So that's obviously you want to present it in a professional way. If you present it in a professional way, we're going to mark it in a professional way. Okay. So, other important information. The examinations portal that you're going to use is exactly the same as with the assessments. So it's the cas.myexams portal. Okay, so make sure beforehand you've got access and you've got no problems, and that you can see you are linked to that site. Okay, Invigilator app, the QR code and the process is on an announcement, and it will be on the examination paper. But that's why I said earlier, don't wait until the exam day if you don't know how that Invigilator app and the QR code and so, because that's not what you want to do that day. Okay, on that day you want to do it quickly. You don't want to read all that information, so that you make sure you spend your time on the paper to get a good as possible mark. Okay. This is currently as announcements on the My Exam site. I will duplicate that same amount announcements on the My Module site either tomorrow or Wednesday. So it's obviously going to be the same. So I don't want you to think it's going to be two different things. I'm just going to duplicate it so that you make sure I want to make sure you know and you've seen all of that beforehand. Then the examination, I already said that. If it's time to upload, in other words, at 3:30, you start to upload, because at 4 o'clock, exactly at 4 o'clock, the portal will close and you will not be able to submit. So even if you're 1 second late, you're late. Okay? And that's the system. It's an automatic thing. It's already preset by the exams department. Okay? And then you know now that you need to upload from 15:30 to 1600. Okay, in other words, from 3:30 to 4 o'clock. When you submit, for example, at 3:45, the system will unfortunately show you are 15 minutes late. That doesn't mean you're late. I'm not sure why the exams department or the settings is set like that, but we know the due time, or what's the correct English now? The cutoff time to write is 15:30, but we tell you you've got until 4 o'clock to upload. Okay, so you will get that message from the system. For example, if you're 15 minutes after the writing time, that you're 15 minutes late, no need to email me. If you've submitted and it's there and it was accepted, then all will be in order. I repeat myself again here. No email submissions will be accepted. Don't upload too late because you didn't listen to me and then you email me afterwards and say, find attached just for I was a bit late or the system or I had network issues, no excuse will be accepted. Okay, that's the exam rule. Examinations, we are not allowed to mark email submissions. Okay, exam rules, in your own time, please go and look at the announcements as well as on the question papers. Okay, but I want you to go and do it beforehand, but it's standard, supposed to be standard throughout all the examinations. So on the day of the exam, I don't want you to waste time on it. Okay, I've already said this, so go and look at the, well, obviously all announcements that I posted, I think is important. So for now, obviously, there's no time to go through everything. Depending on where you are with your studies, go and watch some of the videos and so forth, but go and watch the examination rules, QR code instructions and guide, and then the exams welcome page on specific times on the day, but I've put that in this slide as well. Just go on that welcome page and maybe look at the summary of these two things. Okay. I think that is quite obvious. The exam is close, not even a week from now. So for me, now's the time to do revision and focus on what you do not know yet. Okay. Now, suddenly when I say that out loud, I'm not 100% sure if my English is perfect here, but luckily I'm an accounting lecturer and not an English lecturer. So let's continue. And then there at the bottom, he who fails to plan is planning to fail. So obviously, there's not one specific plan that will suit all, because some students might have one or two modules and that's all they will be writing, and there might be other students with 5 or 6 modules. So you need to make sure you plan properly, that you revise and make time for all the modules that you are writing. Okay. Assessment 3 feedback part A. Okay, so what I've done in this slides is I've put the required, I've then put the solution on the left hand side or on the top side with wherever that information is coming from in the actual information given in the question to the right or to the bottom. In other words, next to the solution, so that I can show you where to get the information from in a question paper. And then I'm also going to show you examples of how we typically mark these things. And then I'm also going to tell you what is in this question and generally the typical errors students make when they answer these things. Okay. So the first one was calculate. I'm going to go to the next slide. Calculate the goodwill or gain on bargain purchase relating to the acquisition of Ngezana Limited on 1 November 2021. Clearly indicate if your answer is goodwill or gain on bargain purchase, and your calculation should be done based on the proof of goodwill method in terms of IFRS 3 paragraph 32. So what I want you to see is, first of all, it's a calculation. By now we know it. I did not highlight it or circled Ngezana Limited. Obviously, you need to read for what entity or what entity are we referring to here. The date is important, 1 November, because that's also guidance, because in the additional information, normally we will tell you on 1 November the following happened. But this is also important that you know the date in any question that you have. Whether it's a calculation or disclosure, you need to know what the date is you are looking for, so that when you get information from the information given in the question, that you make sure you make use of the correct information. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Right. Then I say there in this one, clearly indicate if it's goodwill or gain on bargain purchase. In other words, if you've got a calculation and you've got to answer there, whether it's positive or negative, but you don't show me, you know that that is goodwill or a gain on bargain purchase, you lose an easy mark. Okay? And then in this one, I specifically give you a, let's call it, layout or structure that you need to use to be able to do this calculation. Okay, So now, as I said, on the left-hand side is the solution. So the calculation solution, according to IFRS 3.32, that specific layout is there on the left-hand side. It's cash, not cash, sorry, consideration plus non-controlling interest less net assets acquired. Okay, so that is your layout. In other words, that is this. I want it to be done in this layout. Okay, so there we go. It's there. Okay, there it is. Then at the end, I'm going to jump a bit forward now. We said clearly indicate if it's goodwill or a gain on bargain purchase. So there I've clearly indicated to you my answer is a gain on bargain purchase. Okay, so let's start here. The consideration, and I've throughout all these explanations, I've highlighted certain things, and if I've highlighted, then you need to go and look at the corresponding color, or I've circled it, then you look at the corresponding circle, because that's the indication where you will get it from. Okay, so the consideration given, 635,000 Rand. So this is the places where it was given in the question paper. So it was given in the trial balance. This is now just a snippet, a snapshot or a screenshot of a part of the trial balance is given. Okay. And there you can see it was given in the trial balance. Investment in equity instruments in Gazana Limited at cost. And there it is. So then you know this is the amount that you need to use here. Also in this question, in the additional information, it was given. Okay. So the reason why I want to show this both to you is sometimes in the question, we can either not give it to you here, then it will be in a paragraph somewhere, or we will not give it in the paragraph. We'll just say it was paid for in cash. Then you need to know in the trial balance of the parent entity or the investor entity when it's a JV or associate, this is where you need to look for it. Okay, so that's the cost. Plus non-controlling interest. So the non-controlling interest is the, depending on what method they've applied or adopted, in this case they make use of the proportionate share method, it will be the net assets acquired multiplied by the percentage shareholding of the non-controlling interest holder. So how do I know the 25%? In the additional information, we said on 1 November, we as the parent acquired control by acquiring 75%. So remember, I always say, if I acquired 75% of your shares, the remaining 25 to get to 100 belongs to the non-controlling interest. So that's where I get the 25. The green is the same as this green, is the same as this green. Okay, so what is that? That's the net assets that we've calculated here, multiplied by that percentage. That's how we get the non-controlling interest of the when it's with the proportionate share method. Okay, so what is this net assets? It's calculation C1. So the reason why I'm circling it like this is you can either go and reference your calcs for me like this, for example, to say C1, and then I page further and I see there's your calculations, there's your C1. So then I know it was calculated here. Or you can, for example, highlight it green, and then you highlight it green as well here. But remember now, there's only so many options of colors, and that makes it difficult. So I'm just scared you lost track of the colors, and then you make three things green, and then we don't know where to go and look. Okay, so obviously I think sometimes when colors make sense is if you use a analysis of owner's equity for whatever reason as part of a calculation, and inside that analysis there's a few amounts that you'll be using all over the place, and then you can, for example, reference your analysis of owner's equity as C1, and then all the different amounts in the analysis that you've used somewhere, maybe use that as different colors, and then you can, in your disclosure or wherever it was used, write C1 and then pink, and then I go to C1 and I see, okay, there's the pink one that you've used, and then on the next one you'll say C1 but blue, and then I'll know, okay, this is the one on the analysis. Anyway, let's go back to this. So if we go back to this one, we say, okay, so the net assets acquired is calculation C1. So how do we calculate this? This was the share capital given, 600,000. And again, there you can see the blue, it was obtained from the credits in the trial balances given. Retained earnings given, that was in the same sentence here as above. I just took it a little bit further. So there we say at the acquisition date, the retained earnings of Ngazana, because that's the goodwill or gain on bargain purchase we're calculating, it was 124,500. Okay. Be careful. Let me not talk about this now. I'll talk about it later because it will be in one of the slides later. Okay, then we go to that's obviously the easy part, because that's normally always going to be there. Then you need to look at other information that should be relevant. In this case, we said the fair value of all assets and liabilities of N Limited was equal to the carrying amounts except for, okay? So then you know, okay, the carrying amount of 100,000, fair value of 65. That's obviously from carrying amount to fair value, a increase. And there it is, the difference of the two, the increase you add, it's positive, it's a revaluation surplus in this entity, okay? Then obviously if that's the surplus, you need to always consider tax, and the tax effect on whatever item will always be the opposite sign, okay? So always remember that. And then internally generated trademark, there was no carrying amount, fair value of 124,500, and that's where you get that from. So that's now one of those, I only realize it now, stupid questions where we used the same amount at two places, but there's no relevance to those two amounts. They're not the same thing, okay? And I actually only picked it up now. So that was not a good one. Anyway, oh, it is not the same. Sorry, I see now. Oh, I need to go and test my eyes again. 124,500 and 124,250. Okay, so it's not the same amount, luckily. All right, so but this is where this one is given coming from. So can you see all the colors I've used, all the references to the calculations, and then obviously where do we get these amounts from? And that doesn't mean it's always going to be at the same place, because we can shuffle this information given and give it to you in different formats. You need to understand the principle. The principle is you need to do a calculation. You've done that. The principle is in this case we ask you a specific format. You need to do that. Then you need to understand the principles of how to calculate goodwill or gain on bargain purchase. And that's always the same, okay? Because I've given you in previous classes, and I've put a lot of emphasis on it, on how to calculate it, because I'm telling you now, you're going to get the same things, just with different information in the upcoming exam. Okay? If we look at the required again, did we do the calculation? Yes, we've done it. Did we clearly indicate? Yes, we've clearly indicated. Your consolidation, calculation should be done on the proof of goodwill method. Did we use that method? Yes, here it is. But obviously with a sub-calculation, which is C1, and we've referenced it properly. Okay, so that's what I want you to see, and that's what I want you to do in the exam. This is an example, ladies and gentlemen. Listen carefully. It's an example of how we mark, depending on the complexity of the question, blah blah blah. We can mark differently, but that is a good guidance. So because this was now a calculation, it was a given amount, so we've allocated a mark to that given amount. Then the following one was the carryover amount. That CO is carryover. In other words, what we say is whatever you've calculated at your net assets, even if your answer was 5,000 Rand, if you've used the 5,000 there because you understand the principle and multiplied that by the 25%, you get your marks. Okay? If your answer was positive 1,000 or 2,590,000, whatever, and it was positive, and you said to me it was goodwill, we would have also given you the mark because we mark with your error. We say, okay, but you understand that in your case, the direction is other way around. So the impact or the effect or the answer is goodwill, then we'll give you marks. Okay, and there you can see for all the given marks, given amounts, we've allocated marks. Okay, and even for you to just know you've used your tax rate on this revaluation mark, carry over for the amount as well. Internally generated trade mark, normally it's a little bit of a let's call it something that's not there very often. In this case, we've decided, or I've decided, I'm going to give 2 marks for that. Okay? All right. Typical errors on this part or in a similar situation, students do not use the format as required. Students do not indicate whether it's goodwill or gain on bargain purchase. In other words, they do not answer what we asked. They're using the fair value method instead of proportionate share. So obviously I've showed you there at the beginning when you calculate non-controlling interest, there's a certain way you need to do it. But remember that was on the proportionate share approach. So if a student used the fair value method, that's obviously incorrect in this specific case. They've omitted the revaluation of the equipment. That's again just an example. In other words, they've omitted additional items that was not straightforward. They forget about the tax. They omitted the internally generated trademark, in this case now, all other things. Okay. Calculations is not properly shown or referenced. And important, listen carefully. They did not consider when they done with this part to say, okay, I've got goodwill now, or I've got a gain on bargain purchase. Where else might I be able to use this in the questions to come? So keep it in my head. I'll go through the next questions, but I must remember, I've had a gain on bargain purchase in this instance. There might be a possibility that I will have to use my answer that I've just calculated in the questions to come. Okay, whether it's goodwill or gain on bargain purchase, and you should know where the possible places is that you can or should use it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Part B. So part B was calculate the goodwill or excess of fair value above the cost price of the investment relating to the acquisition of Mukwana Limited on 1 March 2024. Clearly indicate if your answer is goodwill or excess of fair value above the cost price of the investment. So again, it's a calculation. In this case, I highlighted the date, 1 March 2024. In this specific case, I don't have it now here in front of you. The year end was 28 February 2025. In other words, this is exactly on the first day of the current financial year. So the dates are always important. And if you don't understand that, if I make a comment like that, you've got some work to do. Then clearly indicate the same as the previous question. Only 4 marks. Okay? So in this case, I use this format. Because I did not indicate to you what format you should use, you could have done the calculation this way, or even in an analysis of owner's equity format. Doesn't matter. You could have done it like that as long as you show to me the principles on what you need to use to get to this answer. So the same thing, consideration, in this case, consisted out of 2 things. Okay. So in the question given, you could see that this 210, which is the 60 plus 150, was the same as the 210 total in the trial balances given. You could have used that. Okay. Then in the detail of the transaction, we said a piece of vacant land with a cost price of 75 and fair value of 150 was transferred, and EFT to the amount of 60,000. So here you should know it's the fair value that you should use. That's where you get to the 150, and the cash payment of 60. So there that is. Okay. So less the net assets acquired. So there I just show you, you can use whatever referencing method you want to use. So there I said, instead of C1A or yellow, there's my yellow and my yellow and my A. So how do we calculate the net assets? It's again share capital. Again, this was given in the trial balance, the green and the green. Take note, sometimes we'll give you a different number of shares. You do not look at number of shares, we look at rand value. So you'll use the rand value column. Okay? And then retained earnings given. So this was a bit different to other questions. In this one, we did not tell you here in this paragraph what what the retained earnings was, but we told you it was on 1 March 2024. You should have seen and realized that this was the beginning of the current year, and then the beginning of the current year most of the times is given in the trial balance. So I could have said here in the trial balances, because we gave it as trial balances on 28 February 2025, and we could have given it as retained earnings opening balance without a date. Then you should know, but it's this amount. Okay? So please take note of that. We could also give you the retained earnings balance at the end of the year, and then we give you the revenue and blah 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 and all other information that happened throughout the year. Then you need to know, you need to take that closing balance given, deducting all the movements for the current year to get to a opening balance at the beginning of the year. Remember, that's now just when it's at acquisition, the acquisition date was at the beginning of the current year. I'm just giving you another example of how we can give the information to you. You should know the principles. Then you will be able to get to the answers. Doesn't matter how we give you this information. Okay? And then the only difference with the joint ventures and associates, you get this net asset value, then you multiply it by the percentage shareholding. Okay? Can you see we acquired 30% of the shares? So you multiply it by 30%, and that's how you get to the net assets. And this must make sense to you, because me, as an investor, paid 210,000, whether it's now cash or transferred something, that's my total, let's call it payment. I can't put 100% here, because then I don't compare apples with apples. Now I compare whatever I've paid for whatever percentage or value of assets it is that I've purchased from you. So I've only purchased 30% stake in this company. Okay, so let's go. Just want to see something. Oh, and there I've just made a tick mark to say, at acquisition, the fair value of assets and liabilities were considered to be equal, blah, 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 with nothing else below that. And that's why there was nothing like revaluations and internally generated trademarks and blah, blah, blah included here. Okay? So what I'm trying to say with this is always stop when you're here, because this is the easy part to calculate the net assets, and then ask yourself, was there something else? Was there something additional in this information given that I should account for here? So let's look at the required again. We've done the calculation. We did clearly indicate what this was. We've indicated, in this case, I'm just saying positive. I don't want you to think about the signs. I want you to think about the logic of it. And the logic is, you've paid 210,000 Rand for something that's worth 205,000 Rand. In other words, you've paid more. That means there's a hidden asset sitting in here, and we call that hidden asset goodwill. If it was other way around, if you've paid less than what you get, that's a bargain. So that's the excess of fair value that you get over the cost price of that asset. Okay? I want you to remember, when you do a joint venture or a associate, this goodwill, when you get this goodwill amount, You will not take that to the statement of financial position, like in the case with a subsidiary, because this goodwill amount is actually already included in the cost price. Because when you start with your investment in associate or investment in a joint venture that will be disclosed in the statement of financial position, this is the amount that you'll be starting with. Okay, always remember that. Students make that mistake, you lose valuable time. Sometimes we even deduct. Again, example of how we mark, there you can see. Straightforward, the same as with the previous one. Typical errors, no specific format is required. So that's not actually a typical error. That's just something that you should take note of, that if there was no specific format or layout required, you can do it with whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay? Students normally do not indicate whether it's a goodwill or excess fair value. I've explained that. Then we don't know if you really understood. Doesn't help you show me positive or negative or whatever. I want you to tell me, is it goodwill or excess of fair value, blah, blah, blah. And in the case of subsidiaries, again on bargain purchase. Okay. The students did not identify that the idea, I just say identify the acquisition of this specific shares was at the beginning of the current year. They did not identify that retained earnings at acquisition was actually in the trial balance, and they did not identify that the consideration consists out of cash and land. Remember, in this case, we made it easy. We gave you the trial balance already with the 210,000 included. I could have left that out and maybe put question marks there, okay, or write a sentence and say this was purchased, but the accountant did not account for it in the investor's financial system. So then you need to know, okay, I need to look at everything that the investor paid or gave um the the company where he bought the shares from. Okay, so some students maybe then use the cost of the land instead of the fair value. So you should know your principles. If consideration other than cash was given to acquire shares, you need to take the fair value. And then students end with that goodwill at the end, which was correct. And then they use that goodwill and they go and disclose that as a separate line item, goodwill, in the statement of financial position. Yes, if it was a subsidiary, you are correct. This is not a subsidiary, then you don't do it, because that goodwill amount is already part of the investment in the associate or joint venture. Okay. Then calculations not properly shown or referenced, the same as in part A. That's all. Part C. So part C, prepare the pro forma journal entries, blah, 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 to account for the transactions relating to inventory and PPE. And then I put in brackets there, only for intra-group transactions, points number 3 and 4. Okay, so obviously if I tell you do points 3 and 4, don't go and waste time on something else. And that was for the Mokwana Limited Group. I gave you the year end, and then we said journal narrations are required. So what is a journal narration? It's a little sentence at the end to just explain to the user of that working paper what is the reason for that journal, or explanation of that journal. So normally I'm just telling you, we're not too strict on whatever you wrote there. It must just make a little bit of logic sense. So don't stress too much that you get the correct wording, but at least write something that someone who reads it, who doesn't have an understanding of accounting, can see, okay, this is what the journal is about. Okay, I don't know what happened here. So something happened here with my slide. What I was supposed to do here, or what is supposed to be on the slide, is exactly as the previous ones, is where I highlight some of the things. For example, where I say this is to prepare the journals, and where I specifically highlighted to say it's only intra-group transactions number 3 and 4. And then I also highlighted journal narrations are required, because if it's not required, don't waste time on it. So read properly and carefully, as said to you in previous classes, what the required is. Okay, so in this case, this is now the, we're on the first two parts A and B. I've put the solution on the left and info from the question paper on the right. I've just turned it around a little bit here, and I've put the solution on top and the info from the question paper at the bottom, as you can see here. Okay, and that was just to make it more readable for you. So the first journal was for the look at the narration, elimination of the intra-group sale, cost of sale and unrealized profit included in machinery acquired by the subsidiary. So in this case, it was inventory for the parent, but it's now property, plant and equipment for the subsidiary. Okay, and that must make sense to you, that it is possible that you can get things like that. For example, I'm a car dealership, me and you are in the same group. I buy and sell cars. So cars in my books will be inventory. You buy a car or a bakkie from me, you use it as a delivery vehicle or whatever vehicle, but you use it, you're not going to sell that vehicle. And then in your books, it will be property, plant and equipment. Okay, so always remember to look out for that as well. Sometimes we make it straightforward, inventory versus inventory. In other words, you buy a car, you sell the car, so it's inventory in your books, you sell it to me. I also buy and sell cars, and then it's inventory in both our books, or other way around. You had a delivery vehicle, PPE in your books, I buy it, I use it as a delivery vehicle, so it's PP in my books as well. So there's 3 different options. Okay, so in this case, I did the same. I've highlighted where the amounts was getting, where I got the amounts from in the information given in the question. So by now, I'm not going to explain the principles of why revenue and cost of sales and property, plant and equipment. Maybe I'll touch on some of it, but today is not about that, because by now you should know all of that. Okay, so because this was inventory in the one entity's books, okay, in their books revenue and cost of sales was affected, so that's why we need to account or adjust for that from a group perspective. And then in the other entity's book, it was machinery or property, plant and equipment, and obviously then we need to adjust for that or account for that to make the correction. Okay, so in this case we start with the easy one, revenue or sales, that was given as 45,000. So there it is, blah 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 blah, sold the soccer ball compressor to Ngazana for 45,000. So you know it's the total selling price. Cost of sales, yes, there's a way to go and calculate normally that as well. In this case it's easy to just use the balancing figure. So we jump to property, plant and equipment, and we say, okay, there's an unrealized profit of this, okay, because in the one entity it was sold for 45,000 Rand, but originally purchased for 13,500, and that difference is a unrealized profit. So there's that unrealized profit for us as an entity included in property, plant and equipment in the machinery line item, and that's where you get the 45,000 less 13,500. So that's now one of the examples that I gave you in previous classes, where I said, you remember, there's more than one way to give it. So we gave you here a selling price and a original cost price. I could have given you the cost price, telling you with what profit margins I work, or I can give you the cost. I didn't know what I just said, so I can either give you the cost or the selling price and then tell you, okay, but this was the profit margin or markup we are working with. Okay, so that's now obviously, then you've calculated this, you've slot in that given amount, and then that's a balancing figure between the two. Okay, or you can also say, but or this was given, okay, there it is, 13,500. So I know that was the cost of sales. So that's the cost of sales part that we need to get out. All right, and there's my journal narration. And as I said, not too strict on that. And then I always say that's where that purple tick is for you. Always remember your tax effect. Okay, so the tax effect on this unrealized profit. Okay, so there I just use the same unrealized profit here, multiplied by the tax rate, and get my tax effect. I just want to take a sip of water. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Now my slide doesn't want to jump. There you go. Okay. So the next one was, this was now a asset that was in the books of was inventory in the books of the one entity and now became property, plant and equipment in the second entity. And when you have property, plant and equipment with depreciable assets inside there, you need to account for depreciation. So obviously what we're saying is, okay, we know now it's a asset for the books, property, plant and equipment, but there's an inflated asset price because we as a group did not really buy this asset for 45,000. So now we need to reverse part of that depreciation, okay? Or we recognize a part of that unrealized profit through depreciation. You can call it whatever you want to. So adjust for the depreciation. That's what you need to do. So we know the inflated price or unrealized profit was 31,500. We just did it on the previous journal. Then we see, we say multiply by 25%. How do I get the 25%? In that paragraph given to you, we said the blah, 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 and depreciates each equipment like industrial soccer ball compressors over a useful life of 4 years. So 4 years is 20. If you want to work it out in percentage, 4 times 25% gives you 100%. So that's why you can use the 25%. But you could also say 31,500 divided by 4. That's the same thing. I hope you understand that. Okay, so 31,500 divided by 4 or multiply by 25% will give you the same answer. So you can use percentages or years or months if you want to calculate depreciation. How do I get to the 6 over 12? In the question, we said on 1 September 2024, we bought this, or the one entity bought this from the other entity. We know the year end of this company or this group is 28 February 2025. So from 1 September to 28 February, it is 6 months. Okay, therefore, you multiply it by 6 over 12. Okay, so that's just the depreciation adjustment, because in the individual books of the company who bought this asset, they had depreciation on the full 45,000, but this 31,500 is too much. Okay, and that's why we take this now and we reduce depreciation. Can you see we credit it? Normally depreciation is a debit, so we credit it. And the opposite one is accumulated depreciation. Normally, accumulated depreciation is a credit. In this instance, we debit it because we basically reverse whatever that company did in the individual books. Okay, so, this is now journal 2. Okay, so journal 2 was a inventory sale between the joint venture and the investor. And here I want you to know that a few things, okay? When you look at joint venture or the associate, always remember that there's only one line item for the statement of profit or loss or the statement of financial position that you'll be using. Remember I said that in the classes of JVs and associates, it's not like a subsidiary where you will account for each line item in a statement of financial position and profit or loss for a JV and associate. You will combine all of those things in this one line item, and that's going to be the same with your journals. Okay, so in this case, the JV sold this to the investor, so it was an upward sale, and the inventory of the investor, you will call it a parent. So that's it's the investor. We actually just call it parent when we refer to a parent and subsidiary. In this case, it's the investor, because this inventory was sold from the joint venture to the investor or parent. Their inventory is overflated with this unrealized profit in the closing inventory. So we'll first go and see, okay, what is the closing inventory? And you go to the paragraph given. You'll say blah 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 blah. Mukwana Limited, that's now the parent or investor, had inventory of 163,600 of this total sale on hand. Okay, so that's the closing inventory. That's your starting point. We say here you've got a profit markup of 20% on the selling price. So then you use 20 over 100, or just 20, it's fine. It's going to give you the same answer. 20 over 100 or 20, it's the same. If we've set here 20% on the cost price, you will say multiply by 20 over 120. Or if we say profit markup of 25 on the cost price, it will be 25 divided by 125. Okay, and then y multiplying by 30%, and that's where you need to focus now. You don't do the same thing here on your journals with the subsidiaries, but on the joint ventures and associates, because we only own 30% of the shares in that investment. Okay, we only account for the 30%. Okay, because only 30% is part of my investment in this group structure. Okay, then the debit side, in this case, as I said, you're not going to affect revenue and cost of sales now, because revenue and cost of sales for an associate or JV, you add it in one line item. And then the same, there's your amount calculated, multiply by 20%, 7% gives your deferred tax effect for you, and then obviously that's the remaining balance. Okay, or you can go and say this amount calculated, multiply by 73% gives you this, which is the after tax effect amount. Okay, all right, I want you to see here that total sales up to 28 February amount to 337,884, because this was the joint venture who sold this. Okay, and the joint venture is not like the subsidiary where we added 100% of the revenue amount in the TB of the parent and 100% of the subsidiary. So now we need to know that, okay, but we need to fix that revenue line item. In this case, it's not the same, because that individual line item revenue and cost of sales for the JV was not separately added to the revenue line item of the group. It's only that one line, share of profit of associate or JV, that was affected. So obviously the total, we don't need to take the total, because the total was 337, but only part of it was now no longer sold to external parties. Okay, so we just use the remaining balance, in other words the closing balance, and only account for the unrealized profit in that. Okay, because the remaining, the difference, the other part, was already sold to external parties, so it's fine if it was included in the original amount that was included in the statement of profit or loss. I hope it makes sense. This is now just a complete question and answer. And then this last journal, just to show you, you could have split this as well to say, okay, let me just first go and account for the inventory adjustment, And obviously that's to credit it because that's now in the investor or parents books where we need to take out that unrealized profit in the closing inventory. So obviously the other effect is the profit and loss side. And for the investment, not investment, for the JV or associate, there's this one line item. And then we could say, okay, but now we need to account for the tax effect. And the tax effect is also deferred tax there, and then share of profit in JV. Okay, the tax effect. But these two pink ones, the net effect of them will still give you the same as that. So that's just a different way how you can do this journal. Okay. Again, example of marking. So this is just all the narrations was given here, the ones of the dot, 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 dot. And then at the end, we just say, okay, this student did all the journal narrations as required. And in this case, for example, we've awarded 1 mark for the narration. Sometimes it's just a half mark, depending on the difficulty of the journals, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This that I've highlighted in yellow, in blue, was just to show you how easy it was, because some of the amounts was given and some of the other amounts was either balancing amount or carryover amounts or given amounts that you just use again. Oh, I did not even highlight the carryover amounts, because there, you know, I've calculated my 31, I've carried over to the tax, and there you can see we just give you a mark for that, and then again for the balancing. So you must actually be happy when you see journals, because just look at all the easy marks you get. But if you don't understand the journals of an intergroup transaction, it's easy to mess it up, because if you in journal 2 wrote, now here in journal 2, if you wrote sales and cost of sales, for example, here, and this is a upward sale, then you'll be wrong, then you lose these marks. Okay, so obviously with a downward sale, even from a parent to a JV, it's different to this. Okay, so just make sure you go and understand that. Okay, typical errors, extra journals that was not required was done. So that was done, as I said, not just in this assessment, in the exams. Students thinks, let me repeat that. Students think when they do more, they're gonna get more marks. If you do something that I don't require from you to do, you will not get a mark. So it's the same with, that's now not part of this questions, a analysis of owner's equity. You don't even have to do a analysis of owner's equity in the exam, except if I specifically ask you to do so, which I never can remember of that we've done it. Okay, so I can't remember of a case where we ask a student, please show me the analysis of owner's equity. So you don't even have to show it to me. That's just a method of a calculation. So don't go and do everything. Then you've got all these analysis of owner's equity, but you yourself don't understand the amounts in the analysis of owner's equity, where it should be used in the parts that we actually required. Okay, I hope it makes sense to you. I say that every time in every exam, the students who do an analysis of owner's equity, then even some of the amounts that's in the analysis of owner's equity that should be used somewhere in the disclosure, then those things even differ from the student. Then I can see, yes, but you don't understand what you do, because you've calculated the same thing at 2 different places and your answers differ. Okay, I hope it makes sense what you said. But just to say as well, if a analysis of owner's equity works for you and you understand it, you're more than welcome to use it to answer whatever we require. Okay, but that's just then part of a calculation, and I talked about it at the beginning of the session. Okay. Just want to see something here. Hold on 1 second for me. Okay, no problem. Let's continue. Okay, so I already said the first bullet, extra journals or extra things that's not required. Don't do it, you waste time. No narrations given, so you lose an easy mark. You just saw there, it was 1 mark in that question, I think out of, I can't remember now, I think it was out of 12 or something, 12 or 14. That's 1 mark for just after every journal, write something in short. Don't go and write the essay for me of 10 paragraphs. I really just want to see in short, do you understand what the journal was that you've done? The text, tax effect not shown. Again, that's easy marks. If we can just go back to that, that slide. Look here, you've done all the work here on the calculation. Now you just account for the tax. So all these amounts are transferring, you know, there's a transfer amount from your first journal, multiply by the tax rate, and then obviously your journal should balance. But then obviously make sure you've got the debits and the credits correct as well. Okay, but even if you've got them wrong, and you've got these right, you'll get some marks. So always remember the tax effects, except for if I say to you, prepare the following journals, and I say specifically no journal narrations required, and ignore any tax effect, because then obviously I just want to test, for example, this journal. I don't want to test the rest, and my question, for example, only counts 3 marks. Okay, so then obviously you don't have to show the tax effect for me. Okay, and students do not understand or did not read properly that the one inventory, the one entity had the item as inventory, and then it became PPE, property, plant and equipment, or vice versa. Okay, it was maybe property, plant and equipment in my books. I use that as a delivery vehicle, but you are in my group and you buy and sell cars, and then I'm done with this delivery vehicle. It's too old. I want a new one. I sell it to you. You buy it because you're going to sell it as part of your other vehicle inventories. Then obviously it's other way around. So make sure you understand it and read if it is like that in a question. And then students do not understand the journals between an investor or parent and a JV or associate versus a subsidiary. So I think my sentence is a bit confusing there. Let's call it, on the one hand, I'm just going to call it now parent. Okay, in the one hand, you've got the parent versus the JV or associate. And on the other hand, you've got the parent versus a subsidiary. Students don't understand the difference between those two. And I've put a lot of emphasis on that in the previous classes as well. That's easy marks when we ask journals. And even if we do not ask journals, you should understand that, because you need to account for it. Even if I just ask you, for example, the statement of financial position, you need to know, okay, what is going to affect my inventory line item as example? What is going to affect my statement of my property, plant and equipment line item as an example? And what is going to affect my investment in associate or investment in joint venture line item? So know the difference, understand the difference, because if you know the principles, it's not difficult. Okay, part D. Calculate the opening retained earnings to be disclosed in the consolidated statement of changes in Mukwana Limited Group, blah, blah, blah. So again, we ask a calculation. Read carefully. We ask for the opening retained earnings. And that's why it was only 6 marks. Okay? Because if I ask for you the closing retained earnings, or even if I ask you the statement of financial position, and you know you need to include the closing retained earnings there, or even if I ask you the statement of changes in equity, and you know you need to have the full opening retained earnings movement for the year, and then it's going to count a lot of marks. So in this case, the opening retained earnings, the whole story that I just told before this now about whether it's in a statement of financial position or a retained earnings, you need to understand what the final retained earnings amount is made up of. Okay, so in this case, not just in this case, whether it's the opening balance or the closing balance that you need to be calculating, or whether it's disclosure, you need to know that you need to put in the opening balance of all entities in the group. In other words, the parent In this case, this was given. Again, this was my calculation, and this is how the information in the question looked like, and this is where I got the amounts from. So follow the colors. So the parent opening retained earnings was given in the trial balance. Then we go to the subsidiary. Okay. For the subsidiary, you need to take the movement from acquisition to the beginning of the current year, multiply by the shareholding percentage. Okay. So movement from acquisition to the beginning of the current. Let's first say why. Why? Because at acquisition, we eliminated the retained earnings at that point from a group perspective. But when I gave you the trial balances, I gave you this opening balance at the beginning of the current year. That's that one. That already includes that opening balance at acquisition. But we already eliminated at acquisition, and that's why that portion was not part of the group. That retained earnings was profits that this company made before that company was part of my group, and that's why I can't take it into account for me as a group. That's a different way to say it. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So this 124 was given in this case in this paragraph, the retained earnings at acquisition. So you'll say the current year opening balance less the at acquisition, which was eliminated, or different way to say it, that was earnings that they've earned, that's included here, but they've earned it before they were part of my group, so I need to take it out, multiply by the percentage shareholding. So that's the only cases. Remember I said to you in the statement of financial position, the assets and liability side, and the profit or loss for subsidiaries, which was this one, you add 100%. But for the retained earnings, you'll use the shareholding percentage, and there you get it. Okay. I bought 70% or 75% of your shares. That's why I'm only going to account for 75% of the movement when I calculate the retained earnings for the group. Now we go to the investment in JV or associate. So normally in the statement of financial position, all the assets and liabilities, you will not include line by line the information of the JV or associate. But in the retained earnings column, you will do it at their percentage. But why was it not in here? Because this one was acquired in the current year, actually at the first day of the current year. That means there was nothing. Okay? If it was bought 1 month before the beginning of the current year, you should have accounted for that 1 month here. Okay, and then you go and look at all other information. In this case, there was a revaluation. We've done it in one of the other questions, the 165 less the 100,000. So that was just a transfer mark. And where do I get the 60 from? We said 5 years was the useful life. Okay, so remember, you can use, as I said, years or months. The reason why I used months here, because 60 months is the same as 5 years, is because we need to calculate that depreciation on the revaluation from that day until the beginning of the current year. And that was, in this example, 28 months. Okay, and again, my percentage shareholding, 75. And then, remember what I said at part A and part B and C. Take into account if any of those things should be accounted for or considered in the questions to come. Okay, so we're calculating the opening retained earnings, in other words, at the beginning of the current year. That gain on bargain purchase of the subsidiary took place before the beginning of the current year. So that means for consolidation purposes, that gain on bargain purchase should be added here. Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide. The next slide is just to show to you from 1 November 2021 to 1 March 2024, which is the opening retained earnings that we required. That was 28 months. Okay, so did we calculate? Yes, we did. Did we only calculate the opening retained earnings? Yes, we did. So we've answered the question. Okay, so always remember in retained earnings, parent, subsidiary, and JV or associate. Okay, and other information, and if there was gain on bargain purchases of any of these two, if for example we've calculated now opening retained earnings before that, take it into consideration. Okay, and if we've asked for you as an example calculate the closing retained earnings, then you need to know, okay, this is now the opening, I've calculated that. Then I need to go and take the profit for the current year for the parent, the profit for the current year of the subsidiary at the subsidiary shareholding, and the same with the associate or joint venture. And then also, were there any effects of intergroup transactions that was affected during the current year? And then take them into account here as well. And any other information, for example, like this, revaluations and the tax effect. Because if we went 1 year further, obviously there will be depreciation on the revaluation on the current year as well. Okay, then you'll just say 65,000 divided by 60 multiplied by 12. That will be for the current year. If we need to calculate the movement for the current year as well to get to a closing balance at the end of the year. Oh, I've put it in here in my slide. If retained earnings at year end or closing balance, do the same plus the movement for the current year for all entities in the group and all other relevant transactions. Okay. Example of marking. So because it was a calculation, we've allocated marks here for all the things you've used, and to see that you know what the useful life is, you managed to calculate the 28 days that was relevant from that date of purchase to the day of the opening retained earnings. You've multiplied by the 75%. You've accounted for the tax on it. Can you see it's again, as I said previously, there's your effect. Okay, it's the depreciation on the revaluation. The tax effect of that specific thing will always be the opposite sign. And the gain on bargain purchase, you know that you've calculated your, used something that you've calculated in the previous questions, in this case part A, you know that it's relevant here. Then look at my green. If your answer in A was goodwill, obviously the principle is you're not going to put that goodwill in here, okay, because it's a subsidiary, and that goodwill will be then in your statement of financial position. I will then go to part E, and if you've included it in there, the same as in part E, I'll say, okay, I couldn't allocate this one mark to you here, but I will go and allocate that mark to you in the statement of financial position because you were principally correct. You did not have a gain on bargain purchase like this. So you did not include it here because you had goodwill. You've added to your statement of financial position. Typical errors on this part. They did not calculate the retained earnings opening balance. Okay, something that oh no, I've got it there. They did not include the subsidiary part, or they include the subsidiary part, but they did not multiply by the percentage shareholding, and then it's a very easy mark you lose. Remember, I'm going to stop there because that's something students make a mistake of in the exam. If we, for example, ask the statement of financial position, then in the assets and liabilities, you'll include your subsidiary amount and then multiply it by the subsidiary shareholding. That's incorrect. So for the normal property, plant and equipment and inventory and trade and other payables and receivables, there you will add 100% parent, 100% subsidiary. Okay, I'm going to continue here. Bullet number 1, 2, 3, 4. You did not use the subsidiaries movement. In other words, from acquisition to the current year. I already explained to you why you should only use the movement, because at acquisition amount was eliminated. Different way to say it, the amount that existed at acquisition was before I acquired the shares in you, so that amount is not part of our group. And then you also did not include the joint venture part. I say here, this is a general comment. That's why I made it in a different color. It was not specific to this one, because in this one, it was acquired at the beginning of the year. If we can just go back, so there was nothing. Okay, I'm just saying, let's say this acquisition took place 3 years back. A general mistake students make, they do not include the JV part there in the retained earnings, okay? And they did not multiply, or they do not multiply it by the percentage shareholding. They do not use the JV movement. So that's just now general things. It was now not relevant in this question because of the specific date of acquisition, okay? Students normally omitted or leave out the other items, like example, this revaluation, surplus, and tax effects that was in this specific question, or possible impacts of other parts. For example, part A, we had a gain on bargain purchase, and then students forget about it. They continue, they're now at part C, and they just do, and they don't stop and think, okay, whoa, it's still the same entities, but I've calculated the gain on bargain purchase there. Gain on bargain purchase will always affect your retained earnings depending in what year, okay? So obviously we've calculated the opening retained earnings there, and that gain on bargain purchase originated 2 years back, so that's part of the retained earnings opening balance. If that same transaction took place during the current year, so let's say 1 June 2024, which is after 1 March 2024, we would not have included it there, because then it's not part of the retained earnings opening balance, but it will be included in your statement of profit or loss for the current year. In other words, if we did ask the closing balance retained earnings, yes, then it will be part of that movement in the current year. Okay. Last question. This one I did not do in as much detail because this is your homework. Okay. I said prepare only the asset section of the consolidated statement of financial position, and then there at the bottom presentation mark. So there you can see I've highlighted, we ask only the asset section. So it's the same as that journals. If you've done the equity and liability section, you've wasted time because we did not ask for it. Okay. And the year end was 28 February 2025. Remember, we only made this 18 marks because this was an assessment. I do not have 100 marks to test certain things. There was only 50 marks, and that's why I only asked this asset section and only made it count 18 marks. Okay, presentation marks, parcella mark, mahala, for free, verniet. Just if you know your skeleton or layout, this is the mark I'm giving you. Okay, this is my Christmas to you. I'll give you another few Christmas items at the end of this session. Okay, so now my slide don't want to move. There we go. So on this side, on the left hand side, this is the answer. Okay, I've highlighted some of the things here. I'll tell you now. So this is just from the solution in tutorial letter 1, the way I've highlighted the answers here, here, and here, next to C1, C2, and C3, which corresponds to the same blue, yellow, and green here. Okay, so in this specific one, I want you to go and see, print this maybe out to you and say, okay, I want to go and see all these amounts. I want to do it the same as Andre did it. I want to see where in the question could I find all the amounts used here and in these calculations. So this is your homework. And if you struggle to find something, you're more than welcome to email me. So the ones that I've highlighted in orange is to show you how many amounts are there that's given. Okay? So look at all the orange thing. That's all given amounts or maybe transferred from other questions. Okay, I'm going to go back. I want to stop here and put an emphasis on a few things. Okay, the first thing is investment in JV or Motiba Limited. Okay, So this is where I said for JVs or associates, you will only have in the statement of financial position one line item. This is your line item. There's my reference to the calculations. You will also do it like this if there is a statement of financial position required, or you'll go and check what that line item is supposed to be in the statement of profit or loss, because the same principle applies. Okay, you will only have that one line item, and there's going to be a separate calc for it, and normally that calc counts quite a number of marks. Okay, I'll talk about that one a little bit later on as well. I'm going to just go back to that presentation mark. I almost forgot to tell you that one mark. If you've got your group name, consolidated statement of financial position as at, and plus minus a layout like that, which is the normal skeleton or layout that we see, say, you need to know. I already give you your one mark. Okay? Then we go on. I want you to see here that in this case, there was no goodwill here. Why? Because for the JV, in this specific question, there was goodwill. But when, and I said that previously, when your JV or associate had goodwill at acquisition, you will not come and include it here, because it's not part of this, because that is part of that amount there. But it's already, you don't add it again, it's already part of the cost price. I'm just quickly going to go to C2. C2, there's the 210,000. That's the cost price given in the trial balance. So goodwill is already included there. I've explained it earlier. So you're not going to have a goodwill amount that you add here. Okay? Then the subsidiary, in this case, there was a gain on bargain purchase. Okay, so because there was a gain on bargain purchase, you do not include it here. That is part of your opening retained earnings, because that gain on bargain purchase existed or originated before the opening balance or the opening period of the current year. That's why it's part of your opening retained earnings. If the acquisition of the subsidiary, listen carefully, was in the current financial year, it will be in your statement of profit or loss. You will add it there. Okay? Then it will be part of the current year. Right. Trade and other receivables, and that's going to be the same for property, plant and equipment, same for all other items. Okay? All assets and liabilities, you only add the parent information and the subsidiary information, both at 100% for assets and liabilities. Okay, you do not go and add the associate or joint venture amounts here and here and here. Okay, because associates and joint ventures we account for on the equity method, and all those things are included in that line item. And I'm not saying you go and add everything line by line. Go and look at this calculation here. I'm just saying you do not go to the TV and see, okay, there's the trade and other receivables of the associate. I'm going to add it here because I'm not sure. I just know, I remember they've added a lot of things here. It's only the parent and the subsidiary, or if there was more subsidiaries, the other subsidiaries. Okay? Always remember, as an example, in this case, it was now to the inventory line item, okay? And you'll go and see in C1 at the property, plant and equipment, and at C3, the deferred tax line item as well. Intra-group transactions and other information affect some of these things. So this was normal given amounts, okay? So then you use the given amount, and then you check, was there anything else? Either in the intra-group transactions or additional information, or the other parts that I've already done. In this case, part C. If you go to the journal, you'll see in part C, inventory was credited with 9,816 Rand. You need to account for it here. Easy, straightforward mark. One other example, you can call these loan to external parties or financial liabilities, we're not too strict on that specifics. Okay. I see we've got half an hour left. I need to speed up. Okay. Except for if you don't want to go and sleep tonight, we can still talk. Okay. So there you can see the property, plant and equipment I referenced as C1, and there's my calculation. It's parent cost less parent accumulated depreciation plus subsidiary cost less subsidiary accumulated depreciation. And then it's all those other intra-group transactions. Typical mistake students will make here, they will add the joint venture. No mark for that, you just waste time. Or they will take the subsidiary part, multiply it by the percentage shareholding. Incorrect. Assets and liabilities, 100% of the parent and subsidiary. Okay? Typical other error you will make is because of that intra-group transaction, we take out the unrealized profit, which is correct. And then students go and they bring in the tax effect here as well. The tax effect does not have anything to do with the line item property, plant and equipment. So it's the unrealized profit, the depreciation effect, blah, blah, blah. Next one, the joint venture. I say to you, that's normally a lot of marks, okay? Cost price given. In this case, there was goodwill. We told you, don't add goodwill again. It's already included there. Then you take your since acquisition up until the current year, and you do the movements for that. In this case, acquisition took place at the beginning of the current year, so there was nothing here. Then we go to the current year, and we add the share of profit of the current year, okay? And there you go. Share of profit of the current year. This will be given in the trial balance to you. But remember I said you need to go and find it. I'm going to give one example. This will be the revenue of the joint venture. Okay? And students normally make a mistake of this line item. And it's the easiest marks you will get. Because you'll just take the revenue, cost of sales, other income, other expenses, blah, 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 multiply by the shareholding percentage, get to that. Easy mark. Go and eliminate your dividend and look at all other unrealized profits or intra-group transactions. Remember, only if it has an effect on this. So go and take. Sometimes, even if there's a intra-group transaction, doesn't have to say it will affect this line item. We go to the last one. Deferred tax. Okay? Parent given. The subsidiary was given in this case as a liability, and therefore we deduct it. Okay? Obviously, if the liabilities was more at the end, we would either not have disclosed this because we, in this case, only ask for the asset section, or if we ask the full statement of financial position and liabilities at the end was more, that will be where you disclose it. So in this case, profit, not profit, parent given as an asset, subsidiary, 100% of it, but you deduct it because it was given as a liability. And then you go and look at all the intercompany transactions, which has an effect on deferred tax. And you take them into account as well. Students normally leave this out. They forget about this. Easy marks. You've already done it in part C. Okay? And this, I can't even remember the 65, C1. Already did it in another part of the question. Okay. Did we prepare the asset section? Yes, we did. Did we only prepare the assets? Yes. Was there a good presentation mark? Yes. Example of how we mark. Okay. We give you the presentation mark here. Okay. I'll say, and this is not set in stone. I will say, I see you've got the company name and you've referenced the group and blah, blah, blah. And you've got the layout that I've required, or the skeleton, whatever you want to call it. I'm giving you 2 half marks. Sometimes I'll just give it as a single 1 mark. Then we say, okay, intangible asset was in this case given. It's not a common thing that we give in this. So I'm going to give you a half mark. I've decided, okay, based on the way this thing, exam paper or paper was set, I'm going to allocate a mark here. You should have that there, okay? There's a possibility in future I can give a mark for property, plant and equipment as well, but there's no set rule here. You need to have everything, okay? There was too many other easy marks, and then I decided I can't give a mark here as well. I can't give a mark here as well. Can't give a mark. It's straightforward things. But then I say, okay, intangible assets, something, okay, I'll put it there. Investment in JV, students miss this. Okay, so this is something that was not maybe given on the TB, or you could have added all the line items, here with all other line items. So I decided, okay, I'm going to give that one. Deferred tax asset, okay, I'll give the same here as loans. Okay. So this is just examples how we allocate marks for some of the disclosure or descriptions. Okay. That trade and other receivables that was sitting there, okay, the 732,000, there's just an example of how we calculated that. It is Mokoana's 100% plus Ngazana's 100%, and that gives you your 1 mark. It's a half mark and a half mark, that's the 1. Calculation of the joint venture, in this case, because there was no movement and, it only counted the 4.5 marks. But just think, if this acquisition took place 3 years back, there would have been marks here as well. And again, look here, look for this line item, the profit year current, okay? If you just take all these things given in the what do you call it, in the trial balances, you already get your mark. Obviously, then multiply by the 30% as well, as I said previously. Typical errors, students added equity and liabilities or some items not required in the specific instance, then you waste time, and then you tell me I've submitted my solution 1 minute late. So only answer that's required. Presentation weak, your skeleton or your layout is not good, you really lose an easy mark. Lines in the statement of financial position, property, plant and equipment, deferred tax, inventory, etc. added to each for the JV instead of only the parent and subsidiary, as I said. The JV or associate should only have 1 line item. I said that. And I say here, always a big calc. I know now you'll think about it and say, no, but yes, this was only 4.5 marks. Remember, this was 4.5 marks for the calculation, plus the half for the description. That's 5. And it was 5 out of 18 marks. Okay. That's a lot of marks. And then deferred tax liability was given in this example now, and then the students do not subtract that from the deferred tax assets. Deferred tax effects of intercompany or other transactions was not accounted for in the statement of financial position. Although you do it, you've done it on part whatever C where the journals was, and maybe in other calculations, but then you forget to bring over that same amounts in the statement of financial position. And then, as I said, effects of answers of previous questions not considered in this part. For example, goodwill or inventory from those, and property, plant, equipment from those journals, deferred tax, etc., etc. Okay. Examination tips. I said to you at the beginning, and in my announcement, I will give some tips. Don't get too excited, but I'm sure this will help you. I promise you, I think if you know the basics, and if you've listened to my classes and understand, and if you've listened to my classes and know, you should be able to calculate goodwill, you should be able to calculate gain on bargain purchase, you should understand where it should be used, you should be able to calculate and understand non-controlling interest. It's really important, okay? That's now for the statement of financial position and for the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. If you know that, and you know the basic layouts, and you can calculate these type of things, you'll pass easily. There's going to be 2 questions, question 1 and question 2, and both questions in this exam will consist of a few smaller questions, almost like we did in this assessment 3. Okay, so you will have question 1, and part A, I will say calculate something, and part B, I'll say do that little journal, and part C, explain this maybe and blah, blah, blah. And then the maximum amount, if I remember correctly, that one of the subparts of a question was, I think, was 30 marks. Okay. So I think that should benefit you because I break it down and yeah, I think it makes it easier. And I repeat here, know how to, oh, my tenses here is not very good. Know how to calculate it. Now how to calculate NCI. And please, this is not a tip for, okay, they definitely. I always say to students, non-controlling interest is always important. You should understand it. You should be able to calculate it. So this is just, again, I'm putting an emphasis on it. Okay. And lastly, understand the assignment feedback. In other words, everything that I've said today and everything that's in tutorial letter 201 and 202, which is the solutions to assessment 2 and 3, you should understand. And with that, I'm not saying it's going to be a similar question. All the questions cover the same principles. Okay, I just want you to understand exactly what you've done and if you've made an error, why you've made the errors. Okay, and maybe something that I didn't say earlier, if obviously I want you all to aim for 80%, but if your aim is really not 80% or 70%, and there's a small thingy that you don't understand, don't stress. Try to figure it out, but if you don't figure it out, or you can't ask me, or you ask me and you still don't understand, don't stress about the small things. There's enough marks and there's enough easy things that you can do so that you can be able to pass this module. Okay? Exam tips, you can go and read through this in your own time. That's just on that exam techniques video that was shared last week. It's in there as well. One thing that I want you to see to make sure of is point B. Make sure you attempt all the questions because in all questions there will be easy marks. Okay. All learning units are important. Blah blah blah. I just want to see if there was something I want to put an emphasis on here. No, you can go and do this in your own time. Maybe again, point B. If you haven't watched the videos yet, I think what I hope they are quite helpful. But again, if you haven't done questions and you've watched the videos, don't go and watch the videos again and again and again and then think, no, I'll manage to do it. Because one thing that's important in this and all other accounting, and especially I think management accounting, actually all the accounting, management accounting, taxation, auditing modules, if you study other qualifications, I can't talk on their behalf, in our college, I really believe it's important to do questions. Okay, and to do questions and mark yourself because that's how you learn. That's how you identify where the mistakes is that you make. That's where you identify what part of the principles it is that you don't understand, and you can always ask. I always say this, know your terminology and your basics, and then you can answer any type of question. This one, I think, just go and read this again. Remember, what do you need to do in the statement of financial position with subsidiaries and what you need to have for joint ventures and associates. So please go and look at this. And then again, know the differences or understand and memorize them. The intragroup inventory transactions, both up and down. Intragroup PPE, both up and down. And for PPE transactions, remember you get depreciation and accumulated depreciation effects. And this is now between subsidiaries and parents or JVs and parents or investors. And for all of the above, remember the tax effects and check the NCI effects. Okay? How is goodwill or gain on bargain purchase calculated? And I think through all the questions that you've seen, whether it's only a statement of financial position or specific calculations like we asked in this question, you need to understand this. And if you look at the part A and part B that I've explained, you can't not agree with me to say to me it's difficult, because if you just follow this formula, with the information given in the question, even if you miss some of the things, you can easily get for a goodwill or gain on bargain purchase question 70% at least. Ladies and gentlemen, if something's not clear, okay, in the slides or when you watch one of the videos or whatever you go through the study material, any question, you're more than welcome to email me and I'll gladly answer you. Just remember, as we get closer to the exam, the emails get more and more. I'm only one person. It's then going to be your problem if you wait until the end to ask me that question and if I do not have sufficient time to answer you. But I'll do my best. I'll answer the emails as fast as I can. And that is it. So, stop. 17 May 2025 is the examination. Not a lot of time left. Put in the hard hours and then it will be easy. From my side, all of the best for this module and all other modules that you'll be writing. And I really hope this session helped you. And I hope all my classes helped you. And I hope I do not see you next semester because I want you to pass this module. This is all from my side. I hope all of you have a wonderful evening. I hope it helped. If you can just give me an indication. Thanks. I see there's a few people clapping hands. I really appreciate it. Now it's your turn. Go and put in the hard work. Study hard. Have a good evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.